All right, here we go for Tuesday training. Letting all these beautiful people in. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Tuesday training. Anna's coming in. Gary's here. Lori's here. Cheryl's here. So good to see everybody. Hello. Welcome to Tuesday training. Tuesday tidbits, as Lori likes to call it. Hey, Anna, it's nice to see you on camera. Hello, hello. Welcome. Oh, Cheryl was here and now she bopped up. I tell you what, the internet's doing a little bit of a weird thing. Here she is. She's back. Isn't it weird? Do all of you have no social media right now?
No, it's
No.
back.
Oh, mine's not. I couldn't
Oh,
post
really?
our
Yeah.
links today. Yeah, so interesting. Anyway, we're all here together. Glad you all made it. Thank you for being here. Happy Tuesday training hour. It's nice to have you in the house. Hey, Gary, good to see your face. So, welcome. For those of you I've seen a million times, I love having you back. For those of you who may be watching on the replay, also love you there. I can see in the stats that there's about 40 of you who watch within the same day. So I'm trusting that this must be a working, billable hour, client hour for a lot of you. And so I just want to acknowledge those of you who are regularly watching on the replay. It's so nice to have you. And for those of you who are just finding us for the first time, a special, soft, warm welcome to you. I'm Gina Schatz. I'm the developer of the Schatz Method and your host for the next hour. My intention in this hour, hey, Roma, nice to see you. Thanks for your love letter this week. My intention here for the next hour each week, and especially today, is to pour into you because you are amazing practitioners out in the world doing some pretty spectacular work on really important people. And in my effort to support you in doing that magical work, I show up every Tuesday to do just that. So we're going to do a little functional anatomy, client training, mentorship boosting hour as we do every week. This hour, I love saying this, is sponsored by the Schatz Method Academy. And Cheryl's at the LAX airport. Oh, listen to you. Look at you doing both and Cheryl. She's like, I just have to do it. Just have to put my earbuds in, even though I'm at the LAX airport. Well, I hope you're going somewhere fun. Travel safe. Glad that you're here, even on audio. We are sponsoring this week's Tuesday training, specifically on the lever system masterclass that the Academy hosted last week. So that was a really fun turnout. There's still people catching up on the replays and sending in questions and all the goodies. So just wanted to hat tip to those of you who are getting caught up on that material. How many of you that are here right now were at the masterclass last week? Lori was there live. Awesome. Roma, I think you were there live too. Gary, you told me ahead of time you got to catch the replay. Did you get to the replay yet? Haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. Cheryl was there also, even though she's,
Yeah, Cheryl was there.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, are you, Cheryl was there live and in person. That's right.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to go back and do the math, but I can get the link.
Yeah, it was emailed to you. Did you get the email, the follow-up email with the link in it?
I'm still catching up on 5 days of being away. So
been a week. Okay. Well, it's there waiting for you when you're ready for it. It's there. And I thought we'd do a little highlight reel today because first of all, is it a great topic? There was a ton of questions that came up, and there was one particular question that kept coming up over and over again. And so I've crafted a love letter, a newsletter for all of you you'll probably get it in your inbox middle of the week this week. So I'll just leave that there. And if you guys are waiting to receive that training that comes directly to your inbox, absolutely send me a note. And I think everybody that I'm seeing here on camera does get that training delivered to their inbox. But if you're listening and you also want the training, just let us know and I'll drop it in there for you. So I'm going to send you guys a training later this week on the most popular question that was asked at the end of the masterclass last week. But let's do a highlight reel, because what I heard in the masterclass was that even those who heard about the lever system over and over and over again, there was still a new angle, which I love. And we all know that when we learn, we only retain 20%. So even if you've heard it twice, that means you only caught 40%. So why not highlight the rest of it. And what I really want to capture for us today is highlights on the lever system. So I'd love to hear your takeaways and what stood out to you, and share my own. And then also I'd love to dive into how you are or have been implementing it, either in previous knowledge of the lever system, or especially if you had a new takeaway from the masterclass, how have you implemented your takeaway? So I know that sounds like an assignment for all of you. Just want to give us sort of an overview of where we're headed today. Rhonda, it's good to have you here. Joanne, welcome. Love having you guys here too. Come on camera if you can. Join us in the chat at a minimum, and definitely come off mic or off mute if you can use your mic so I can hear your lovely voice and answer your questions. And I do want to answer some questions. So let's do what was your, for those of you who are at the masterclass or caught the replay, what was your highlight from the lever system? And if you weren't at the masterclass and you just have a highlight about the lever system, I'd love to hear that too. So some people were even like, I don't even know what the lever system is. Am I supposed to know this? And others were like, I've heard this for the third time, but I got something new. So what was your highlight? You share yours first, and then I'll share mine. We'll do a little show and tell on highlights. Anybody want to go first?
Okay.
No,
I'll break the ice. It wasn't exactly new information. Again, you hear it and you hear it and you hear it, and it lands in a different way. And I know this from mastery, that the bones must be aligned in order for the lever system to function properly. And when it doesn't, that's when it can lead to compensatory problems, recruitment, lack of strength.
Yeah. Yep. And that's sort of then like that idea about the lever system and how it works and what it does for the function in the body. Then it naturally sort of like combines with alignment, which we know is part of our functional anatomy formula on last year's masterclass. And the book ending is really interesting, right? Like, for those of you who, and I know everyone here is, for those of you who are taking yourself on again with anatomy, it does render the squirreling, just because of how interconnected all the parts and functions are. It would be natural to start to squirrel. So I love that you could see just the lever system on its own. This is a great highlight for all of us. That's why I'm going to surmise it here. See the lever system for what it is. And then after you get super clear on what that is, then widen or extend your periphery, and like, what else does that connect with? What else does that affect? What else does that touch in its function? And that, I think, is one of the ways that we make learning the anatomy and functional anatomy simple. Take something really complex and find a spot first. And it is tricky to bookend it, the body itself. It is tricky. So I do recommend that. And it's one of the reasons why the master classes are like, okay, we're going to just stay in this lane for 90 minutes, right? So I like that, Lori. That's a great highlight. And you're right. We do talk about it, the lever system, over and over and over again. It's in like 6 different courses in the, build the first half of our academy training. The lever system is brought up like 6 different courses, because it's the foundation of movement. It's the foundation of muscle action, which is then where we end up treating people in function or pain.
I also like the little nugget, and I think I shared this in the masterclass, that muscle tightness, which we went over last month, is an imbalance in the lever system. I love how that, like, Tuesday training tied into, I mean, it all ties in.
Yeah. No, that was deliberate. We did tension types. I knew that we were headed into that masterclass, and it's just a great way to connect those two, right? So you take just the lever system, you take just tightness, you widen your periphery, and you're like, oh, there's the relationship between those two. What I like about that, knowing tightness types and then applying the lever system, or vice versa, is we often, and our clients definitely often, forget that the muscles are not the enemy. We're all like, oh, my back, or that bum ankle, or it's always my right hip, or it's my left glute, or it's my rotator cuff from that old football injury. Like, it's really easy to like point at the body, especially muscles and joint actions, and be like, you're not my friend. But the truth is, it absolutely is your friend. And it's the way you are or are not addressing the lever system that is eliciting the pain. And when we know that as practitioners, it makes it super streamlined on resolving the pain problem. And then you get to know how the lever system's designed and what it does when it's working well, and then restore that. So yeah, tension types. It's like, well, is it this tension? Is it that tension? It's tension. I should do something about the tension. Yeah, true. Find out how it got there. Find out how it got there. And the answer lies in the lever system.
Yeah. And then I'll just bookend it, and then I will be complete that how I've been and then
Oh, you had three. I'm so grateful that you're letting me.
I implemented how I've been implementing it is in my yoga classes. We did a whole practice on hip flexion and extension, so psoas and glute max. We also did lateral rotation of the hip and medial, so adductors and piriformis. So that was an aha for a lot of folks.
Amazing. What did they learn? Because this is not your first rodeo. You've been an avid movement practitioner for a long, long time. What was new about this one for your peeps?
That they didn't even realize, like didn't realize, hip flexion and the biggest thing about extension was they didn't realize that glute max did that. Like everybody knew glute max, but they didn't realize, they thought a lot of them, I heard that their back muscles did that. And I was like, oh, my heart, right? I'm like, no wonder you have back pain. So they were thinking that it was a back muscle that did hip extension.
Right.
And then I think they thought it was maybe glutes again. Like, interesting that glutes did lateral rotation rather than deep six. So yeah, so that was good. Yeah, everybody the next day, they're like, oh my God, my butt.
Good.
With deep six.
Oh my gosh, amazing. So that is a perfect illustration on how the implementation and the knowledge of the balanced lever system either contributes to pain and dysfunction or can eradicate it. So we talk about this a lot in our mastery program, that the enormous prevalence of low back pain is because of the absence of the lever system in the hip. And I love that you got to illustrate that for the people that were doing movement with you, because that joint action is every step. But we don't always calculate that or even know how to do it. And correcting gait in gait is tricky business because it's dynamic fluid action. So just taking joint action for joint action is perfect. And what muscle does that job? And so we talked about that too in the lever system masterclass. If any of you are in the like, I actually don't know what muscle does that job, just fine. Don't beat yourself up about it. Take a note on your whatever you're taking notes on today and be like, you know what? I need to go back to joint action. I don't even know what the opposite joint action is. And I need to go back to muscles and figure out what muscle does that joint action. There is so much value and material in troubleshooting for you in those two answers: thorough joint action, which is essentially lever system, and the muscles that do that joint action, again, lever system. So if you know those two parts of the lever system, you can eradicate a whole lot of problems for your folks, and also find out how they created their problems, and also prevent the next one. And that's like 90% of what we all do, right? Whether you're movement or manual practitioners, that's what you're up to. I don't want this person to be in pain. I want to fix the pain that they're in, and I want them to not do it again. Exactly. It's lever system, lever system, lever system, lever system, which is a two-pronged approach: joint action and the muscles that do that joint action. If you're still learning that, or going back to remembering it, or being like, oh shit, I knew it at one time and I forgot, no problem. Let us support you. We've got ways that you can, brush that up a little bit. Because it helps you with so many other complex things that are no longer complex then. So I love that for your peeps, Lori. I love that you got to really exaggerate that. And I would also share that we know that, well, I've said this before, so now we all know it here anyway in our community, that pain and dysfunction is not present when we use the body the way it's designed. It's just not, because we're not designed to be in pain. We're designed to be out of pain. The pain and discomfort is a raised hand from the body going, could you please help me? And once we get over our old habit of blaming the body for being an adversary and instead realizing, oh my God, my friend's like really suffering, I should do something with that, about that, and restore the lever system, then we know that there's no pain and discomfort. So one of the things that you highlighted in your class that I want to make sure we all have this as a takeaway is lever systems are balanced action on both sides of the lever. So we're all very well versed in hip flexion. Every one of us right now, even though I can't see you from the belly button down, is in hip flexion. Every single one of us. But as it was revealed in your movement class, Lori, how many of us do well-versed opposite action at that same joint? How many of us actually do hyperextension of the hip in balanced minutes, in balanced muscle activity, in balanced equality, meaning equal sides, equal time, equal strength? We just don't. We just don't. And that creates problems for folks. Hey, Haywood, nice to see you. So we want to keep remembering that, whether you're a movement person or a manual person, and your own responsibility to your own body. Have I moved the joints in equal ways on the lever? And have I moved every joint in every action that's available to it today? Because if the answer to either one of those is no, you'll have discomfort at the end of the day before you ever get into trouble, before you ever, like, slip on black ice or have a football injury or twist too hard in a yoga class or whatever the thing is, right? Before you ever get into trouble, if you haven't moved the levers in equal form and fashion today, and you haven't moved all the joints in all the actions that are available, you'll have discomfort. We know this. We know this because of balanced lever systems. We know this because of atrophy and how quickly that starts. It makes big, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's causing my person's discomfort and pain, and I don't know what to do about it. It makes it really clear. Like, oh, this is all I got to do is just to restore the function and design. And I know the function and design. I got this. So I'm not meaning to oversimplify it, but I want to remind us that we do have answers to complex cases. Ron, did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to speak on what you were just talking about. So I'm a kinesthetic learner. And so I was out gardening the other day for several hours. So I was bending over at the waist, lifting pots of soil and plants, etc., for, I don't know, 3 hours, maybe longer. And so I had a little bit of back pain. And I came in the house and started doing hip extensions, and 95% of my pain went away.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. Perfect implementation of the lever system and what we were just talking about. So once we know that, we're super empowered. And then the doing is the important part, right? Knowing it is one thing. But if you knew it, Rhonda, right? If we know it and don't actually do the movement, we're not out of pain. We're just smart. We're smart about how we're in pain, but we haven't resolved it. You've got to implement, my loves. You've got to implement. Do what you know, move the body, practice what you get to practice, have your clients and the people you serve do the same. Be in action about it. Awesome. I love this. Okay, any other highlights from the masterclass that you guys want to share? Thanks for going first, Lori, and breaking the ice for us. Any other highlights from anyone who was there last week or watched the replay? Nothing. I put you on the spot a little bit. Well, I'll share one of mine. And of course I have a slightly different lens because I'm observing how I can support all of you and what's needed in all of that. And also I want you to have the material, and I know the material that I teach you. I would hope that I would know the material I would teach you. I don't want to teach you something I don't know. So I already knew what I shared with you, and I know how it works because I apply it. And for those of you who I haven't said this to, I only teach the anatomy that I use working clinically, because then I know it works, because we just had this conversation, right, about the implementing. I don't want to just teach you something out of a book that you can go Google. I want to teach you something that actually applies to the work that you do. And all of our courses are like that, and all of our programs are like that. And so same with the masterclass. So what I heard, and what I observed, the highlight for me in the lever system was some of what I already mentioned, that y'all get to make it a lot easier on yourselves by just knowing a strong foundation of anatomy and how it's built. And I think that we have this concept in yoga that I think really applies here. I think a lot of us, especially those of us who are veterans, I know some of you who've been at this rodeo for several decades, which is unheard of in our industry. And we tend to forget the beginner's mind. So this concept in yoga about the beginner's mind has lots of philosophical facets to it that, we could entertain for the rest of our time here today. And I'll just streamline one of them. And that is, what if you allowed yourself to learn as if you were learning it for the first time? What would you be able to pick up if you allowed that? And I think once we've been in practice for a while, we're kind of deep in it. We've been there, we've got our habits, we've got our skill sets, we've got our tools, we've got our title, we've got our regular clients, we've got our, business goals. We're kind of deep in it. And it's been a while since we were in school, some of us. We might have gone in for continuing education, especially because most states have it mandatory. But it might have been a minute since we actually went back to the basics. And even though I wouldn't say that the basics that I teach are basic, because you get to implement and apply it and all the things. And so there's this lovely dimension that comes with it. This idea of the lever system is pretty basic. It's pretty basic. And so what I learned in sharing all that last week, and then hearing the questions that came up after it, is that some of us either didn't get thorough basics, or it might not have been the 20% that we remember, or we haven't had an opportunity to implement it, especially manual practitioners, right? I was one of them. I knew all the muscles, I knew all the attachment points. I was literally like final examined on all of them. I had to point to the exact spot on the attachment point, but that didn't teach me how it moves. And for the big chunk of the first few years of my career as a manual practitioner, there was no movement except them walking in and walking out. That was it, right? Like I was the one doing all the labor, hovered over the table, kind of putting myself into a pretzel to make it happen. And so that was a big gap in my understanding about what I was actually affecting or trying to resolve. And then when I went into the movement world and, went down that certification route, I realized that there wasn't the shared knowledge of the muscles. In movement practices, we're not tested on where the attachment of a muscle is. We're taught on how does the movement look? Where's the body supposed to be in space? And so there's a big gap there as well. So in both sides of our industry, both manual and movement, this pretty basic idea, lever system, this side pulls, that side lengthens, reverse, repeat all over, kind of basic in its delivery, is so fundamental to everything we're all doing, whether we're movement or manual practitioners, that I invite us all to be reminded that a beginner's mind doesn't mean you're not talented. It means you might take a nugget from the basics and run with it to the finish line with huge success and giddy laughter because of how easy you just made it for yourself. That's how I felt when I started implementing the lever system. And that's why I wanted that for you all and designed our masterclass around that. So even if you've heard it before, how else are you implementing this lever system? And then if you've got the lever system down pat, you're like, Gina, I freaking know the lever system. I know all the prime movers, muscle names that do the action. I also know how to engage all of them. I've implemented my face off. Great. I applaud you. Every joint action, prime movers on both sides, awesome sauce. Then go the next step and go into reciprocal inhibition, which was the most common question last week. What is reciprocal inhibition? And I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Some of us are still, learning what that is. Okay, I want you to have this. And that's the love note that's coming to you this week. I wrote you a written training on reciprocal inhibition. So I won't dive into that here today, but I will share this about it. Reciprocal inhibition is how movement is really created in the body. Now, I'm not contradicting myself. The lever system is the base of it. If we don't understand the base, we can't get to the complex. We just can't. And so that's the beginner's mind. Like, are we willing to have a beginner's mind and just be open to the idea that there is a basic that we get to go back to? Actually, Gina, I don't know all the joint actions, if I'm honest. I've been a manual practitioner for 30 years. Actually, Gina, I don't know all the joint actions. I've been a movement practitioner and never needed to name the movements I was doing, unless I was a yoga teacher and then the pose itself has a name, but not the joint action that's doing the pose. Okay, great. Just be open to that and know that filling in that gap is going to get you mileage of value in solving problems. And I know everybody that's here in our community is solving the problems. You're not here to learn how to be a yoga teacher or a massage therapist. You want to handle the discomfort that your massage clients and yoga students have. That's why you're here. I'm inviting us again to be open to going back, or back sounds like retracing. And maybe I just caught why we don't do it. Just have a beginner's mind and be willing to dive deep into something simple and foundational like lever system. Once you do that thoroughly, meaning joint action everywhere and the prime movers that do that action, and have you balanced it? Do you know how to do that for your person? Then go into reciprocal inhibition, which is all the muscles that do the action, because no muscle moves by itself. And we did talk about that in the masterclass last week. So how does movement actually happen? It happens with reciprocal inhibition. If the base of that, though, the base of reciprocal inhibition is the lever system. If the base of reciprocal inhibition is not balanced, there's no way the movement will be, or reciprocal inhibition. So you went too far too fast if you go into reciprocal muscles and synergist muscles. That's why I teach at lever system first, joint actions and muscles, then reciprocal inhibition. And really, I want you to follow that order. Lever system's where we're at. The muscles that do that is next. Then move on to reciprocal inhibition if you are resolving pain and discomfort, resolving dysfunction, or addressing pain and discomfort. If you go to the pain and discomfort first, you will make it hard for you and them. It will make it hard for you and them. And Lori, your share from your yoga class last week was a perfect example of that. How many of those students did we all hear probably walk around with some low-grade, low back something? Did you all hear that? That all the students who didn't actually know that bringing your leg behind you and hyperextending your hip is a glute max action, they all were using their back to do that. Did you all hear that the implication of that then equals low back discomfort at a grade? If you didn't hear it, that's okay. That's why we're reviewing it. But that's how pain is created, by an imbalanced lever. Once you get into the reciprocal inhibition, now you're into compensatory patterns and recruiting, where the lever, the main guy, is like borrowing from the next guy, and it gets to be like this domino effect. Too complicated if you don't yet. I believe, as the educator here in the room, I believe that that's too complicated to dive into if you're not super freaking clear on lever. Because that alone can resolve low back discomfort, like Lori, you did with all your peeps last week. You resolved back pain for them because they're not creating the back pain. That's how you resolve it in a lot of instances. And that was straight up lever. That wasn't reciprocal inhibition. It was this guy does this joint action, that guy does that joint action. Great. So I wanted to land that for you, because that was the big takeaway for me last week, that we don't always yet, until now, tie symptoms to something simplistic and basic like lever. And I don't mean basic like shame on you, you don't know it. I feel like I've already sort of established. It's just the beginner mind of it. Like, wow, I've been in the trenches for so long, I forgot I could make this easy for me as the practitioner here, right? So like simplified in the body's design is where a lot of the answers lie. And wouldn't that be great if we could make it easier for us to resolve issues? Right? That's my intention for all of us here, because it's so possible. It's just so possible. And that was my takeaway, that we forgot the simplistic or skipped over it or didn't know it or weren't taught it and have been deep in the trenches. And then that's where we lose our confidence, because we're like, oh shit, I'm so deep in and I don't know actually how to solve the problem. Lever system, pull out, be simple, go streamline with what you know. So I would love for everyone to be, Gina, I got all the joint actions all around the body and all the prime movers that do that joint action, and I implemented it, and these are my results that I created for all of my clients in the last 2 weeks. That would be, I mean, when that happens for you, I want you to personally drop me a letter, because I will celebrate. You'll hear me from wherever you live. I will be cheering to the gods. Yay, all the pain that's been resolved. Okay, does that support you? Does that support you guys to have that review, that recap? You guys look like you're super thoughtful today. What's going on? Is it just the internet? What's happening? It can't be. Does that review of the lever system support you? Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And not
Okay.
skipping ahead.
Yeah, because make it easy for you. Make it easy for you to do the work.
You know, this is a little off from that, but it's just because I've been an educator all my life.
Mhm.
And the idea of spiraling. And definitely, even when people think they know and they come up, why are we going over this again? Okay, we're going to make sure you have the basic. Then we'll bring a little more into it. And instead of just doing circle loops, you're always coming back to the very first. And then you're just taking it up and up and up. And I teach a more dynamic that is meant to be rebalancing and thinking of lever system. However, I don't always think that they've created something really good, but I'm not always sure that they understand why they create it, which is why why it's really good.
Who's they, Roma? Who's they?
Patrick's community. I think they're getting clearer on it, but it's really good, and it's not that well known, but it definitely takes one into it. But just the same, it's like, well, why is this working? I need to go back so that I understand it better and I cue better, or just do a lot better for it. And I tend to, at the moment, because I'm lazy, to tell you the truth, I'm now retired and lazy, just have a lot of privates, and they have problems with pain or immobility due to, different reasons. There are many different reasons. And all of this helps me to think, helps me. Like, I just walk in, first kind of take a look, and then see what's going on that day. But to get back to, even though I know it, to putting it in my head, let's do something really, really simple also for me to be able to assess, but for them to get away. And this just clarifies for me why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I could be more, in my mind, explicit with why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then you see, for me, better results for the person that they get. So that's a little off from what you're talking about, but that's what it just reminded me of the way I used to teach, like, literature or history. We're spiraling back to get on this.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the simplicity to offer your clients as well, because the truth is our clients aren't any different than us. They learn with simple, basic ideas in static positions too, without a lot of extra superfluous or fast movements. That's how they learn as well. And they're only going to hear 20% of what you say. Even though they're paying attention fully, like y'all are paying attention to me, you're only going to hear 20 minutes of what we talk about today, or whatever the 20-minute mark is, 20% mark is. So we want to remember that when we're delivering solutions to folks and enrolling them in their self-maintenance, their homework at the end, that we're also giving them clarity on the why, which must be simple. And the way I learned how to message for that purpose was by asking my clients what other practitioners had given them for homework. You know, PTs are the most famous for giving exercises, homework, right? It's part of their modality. Great. And clients, I don't think have ever in 31 years been able to clearly tell me the exercise they're doing and replicate it in front of me and tell me why. In 31 years, there has not been one client who was given homework who understands why they're doing it or how to do it well. So what are the chances of the effectiveness then of that homework? And that's one piece for us to measure, like, are we being effective? Are we enrolling them in the maintenance work that we need them to do for the program we have them on? The other part of it, though, is are they leaving empowered? Are they leaving empowered to do anything different to prevent their own pain or heal their existing discomfort if they don't even know why they're doing something or how well to do it? No, the answer is no. They're not leaving empowered in any way. They're leaving disillusioned, confused, and in their own swirl because they don't understand. And that, I believe, I talk about this a lot in my mastery practitioner group, because we get to raise the level. We get to raise the caliber of what we're providing people. And that is a professional responsibility. And in our community, it's mandatory. You get to know who you're talking to. You get to message it clearly. You get to understand the nervous system and how it takes in information. And you get to have clarity on why you're asking someone to do something. So clear that you know it like you know your middle name, with the ability to explain it with that much clarity to the person you're asking to do the work. And if you don't have all those steps, you're giving them busy work and probably making it worse. Because what if they do it wrong? What if they don't understand? What if they doubt that it's going to help? That's not helping. That's adding to their doubt. It's adding to their discomfort. So we talk a lot about that at our mastery level, and it's worth it to bring it up here today as well. The simplicity of our learning and our willingness to learn simple, basic, foundational, clear parts, our willingness and openness to be in that space allows us to deliver efficiency to the people we're serving. Our insistence on, lifting our nose above whatever level we think we're at, or diving into complexity, or squirreling unnecessarily, our insistence on that way of showing up means that we're also creating that in the environment where we're meant to be in service. So I just invite us all to, be in an open space about what do you get to fill in? And can you be open and humble enough to just go do that? Can you just go back and review prime movers? Can you just go back and learn joint actions without it being, you're somehow a failure or not good enough? And instead, look at all the benefit that comes for both you, the results you create, and the experience of the people you serve when you are willing to be at that space. Straight line, simple, basic, and then move on from complexity from there. Are you willing to do that? Because that makes it really approachable for them. One of the compliments that I love receiving the most is that I have a way of delivering really complex anatomy in a way that is digestible. I learned that from talking to my clients because of this exact scenario I just painted for you. They came in with 3-ring binders of exercises they had been given over a 6-month track of physical therapy without a clue what they're doing, why they're doing it, or how to do it. And still in pain, or they wouldn't be with me. They'd be back with that other practitioner, right? And I don't think that it's about the other practitioner not being qualified. I think that there is a way of being qualified and implementing that qualification is also how you enroll the people you're serving into what you have on deck for them. That's part of the implementing. Can you explain it in a way to them that it's approachable? in the same way that some of you have said to me that the anatomy is approachable. We get to do that for the people we serve. We don't get to talk in squirreling complex, or the one I don't like the most is deflecting. You don't really know the answer, but you just start talking because you think you're supposed to know an answer. Stop doing that, my loves. Please stop doing that. People can see right through that, and you don't feel better about yourself at the end anyway. Just be willing to say, I don't know. Be willing to be in the beginner mind. I don't know, but I'll find out. Because you matter to me, client, and I will find out. Be willing. Be in a beginner mind space about it. All right. I feel like that's a lot of mic dropping there. Any questions that have come up? Thank you for your share, Roma. We got a lot of goodness from that. Rhonda, you have another one? Are you coming to your mute button? Sometimes I can tell. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to thank you and Cheryl for at the end of the last session you gave us books that you use for anatomy study, and I picked up the Ray Long yoga muscles book and I'm in love, and going back to the beginning.
Great. Good. Yeah, his images are bar none for sure. And like I said last week, I think that it's valuable to have, multiples. I think you get to learn the attachments and the actions that those muscles do. And his visuals, especially as you said, Rhonda, you're a kinesthetic learner. That's perfect. So the next closest thing to being a kinesthetic learner is a 3D image. So those images definitely provide that. I'm glad that was valuable for you, Rhonda. Good. Go ahead, Gary.
Gina, could you repeat what Rhonda said, because she was breaking up about the reference? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we were talking a Tuesday training last week. There was a question about what muscle book do I recommend? And I do recommend we have visual aids for muscle training. I don't have a muscle book of my own. We have a workbook that goes with our muscles and movement course. But if you're not in that course, the books that I recommended were the ones that we brought up last week. And the first one was Musculoskeletal Anatomy by Sig Adams. It's a singular look at one muscle at a time. The other one was Trail Guides, which has a little bit more storyline for people who really like to understand things and read to comprehend. And then the third one, which was very visual but not as much context to it, was the Ray Long books. He's got very great 3D images.
Ray Long, Long?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anna, you're muted.
I wasn't at the Masterclass last week, but you are driving home the point of going back to basics. And I am in your mastery program, and we build on those basics and have been building. And so I'm coming to my question because I'm now still madly in love with the Sacred Sacrum course. And I don't ever want to move from there. I'm having huge success with that. And so my question is, how do you go back to basics when there's just so much other juice to apply to a client?
Yeah, that's a good question. You go back to basics when there's so much to apply to a client. Well, I think let's take out the word back. Let's take out the word back. And let's instead remember that foundation and basics of the body's design is where most of the answers lie. So instead of returning back from whence we came, or taking our eyes off the juicy sacred sacrum and having to go look somewhere else, let's take out the word back. and instead remind ourselves that the foundation of the body's design is what we're building from. Not going back to, but all the love that you have for the complexity can only be reached when you have an understanding of the base design.
Okay, so I get what you're saying because, my client this morning, I put him in optimal standing first, before I measured him. I thought, yeah, we're gonna throw everything at you so that we can get the best measurement possible. So put him in optimal standing, and then we did optimal sitting, and then we did the tune-up balls, and then I measured him. And so I get what you're saying. So the optimal standing, optimal sitting would be to try and get him in as, the way the body's designed, with the 4 curves, and then take it from there. So I suppose, but I wasn't doing lever system. I guess that was the whole thing, because we really weren't doing that type of movement. So that was yeah.
What do you mean you weren't doing that type of movement, Anna? What other movement is there?
There is no other type of movement, but
there you go.
But it wasn't, we did do bridges. And so that was interesting. You tweaked that for me, the lever system and bridges, because he has a really clicky hip. Like I'm convinced he has osteoporosis, and he's got an appointment for a specialist, but it's super, super clicky. And yes, we did do that. And when I had him properly aligned, block between his bent knees and really focusing on the 4 corners of his feet, especially his big toes, and then, bridging up using his glutes, being very aware of his glutes coming up, and then feeling the hip opening when he's at the top of the bridge, and then coming down with equal awareness. He had no clicking of the hip. And when he would miss out on either, really pressing the big toe down or focusing on those knees tracking forward, he would have clicking of the hips. So that was a perfect example of when you're perfectly aligned, when you're doing the proper joint alignment and then using those muscles properly. And he got it. He's like, oh, okay, he got it. Oh, so when I focus and have that proper alignment, that hip is not clicking. So yeah, I guess I did take him back to the lever system, but only in that movement, that was.
So let me explore this with you then too, Anna, because you're hovering right there. And you're already there, so you don't really need any more, but I want you to know that you're there. So example, I heard you say when he was in alignment, the clicking stopped. Great. Do you believe, Anna, do you believe that our functional anatomy formula, for those of you who don't know the formula, we taught the masterclass last spring on this. Do you believe that the formula, the functional anatomy formula, is a foundational basic knowledge of how to approach complex pain?
100%.
Okay, so there you go. You applied that. You applied the basics first before, oh my God, the hips clicking and the osteo and the weight and the alignment and the pain that he came in. You didn't go into the swirl. You were like, let's go back to first things first and then see what comes of it. And so then when you were in the bridge and actually doing the movement, did you know what joints were moving and what actions they were taking?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. And did you know the prime movers that he was meant to engage to do that?
And he knows them as well.
And did you know how to check to see if they were engaged?
Yes, I had my hands all over his body with permission.
I get it. I get what you mean. So there you go. So you already have been implementing that way. And this is the beginner's mind I was inviting us to think about today. We forget how simple it can be to address even complex issues with people with pathologies and changes and pain that goes with that. You were still applying and implementing 2 foundational, wide-reaching, though, basic ideas of design and movement. And does it take us a minute to learn them? Yeah, of course. Like you didn't learn the functional anatomy formula in 20 minutes or on a, live on Tuesday. You didn't learn all the joint actions and all the muscles that do that in a weekend. But it also didn't take you your lifetime. It was a couple months of deep training. And now you're like, oh my God, I use it all the time, everywhere, all the time. Even in complex cases with people with pathology and pain that's present, instead of freaking out, oh shit, this person's in pain and I don't know what to do. How do I get them out of pain? By going back to the basics that you did your due diligence on to learn how.
Right. I guess because the whole focus of this session was, sacred sacrum with him. I actually had totally forgotten that I had built not only the bridges, but we also did, child's pose into downward dog, and coming back to child's pose, lifting the knees up, hovering, child's pose, downward dog, and in all of those, and he loved it. So yeah, I guess I forgot. That's interesting. I forgot that I'm actually, doing those basics and helping him understand what his joints are doing. And when we do things properly and use the proper muscles, he is balanced. He doesn't fall on one hip and he doesn't have that clicking in the hip. And it's tremendous revelation. I'd actually forgotten that I still was applying the basics because I'm in love with something else now.
Yeah, and you're still in learning, so it's easy to be like taking in more, and then I want to apply all of that, and that's why we walked through it. Your question's beautiful. What you said also that I don't want to let disappear is you knew it enough that you even forgot that you knew something, which is what allowed you to explain it to him, so that he could be empowered on how to move his body and not be in pain and have clicking. And that's really what we're up to. We're not up to being the smartest person in the room, although that's a good goal to reach. What we're really up to is, what do I do with that knowledge and skill? What service am I providing? How am I benefiting the planet? What's my vision for the people I serve? That's what you're up to with it. We can't do that unless we know it so well that we're no longer in our brain thinking about what we don't know. We're just delivering on the knowing. Because it's so natural to us. We're like, I forgot 6 months ago, I didn't know this. Holy wow, look at me. And that's why I wanted to bring it back to you, Anna, because we do forget. We're always looking at what we don't know, and we're looking at the problem in front of us. When we have a strong foundation, it follows us everywhere. And that's what makes complex issues really simple to solve. All
right, I'm taking this moment to celebrate me.
Yay, Anna, and I'm celebrating you celebrating. That's a turn of events as well. I love it. So good. And that's what, Roma, you were saying as well. Like, we get to come back to the basics, right? We get to go out and be in complex places and come back to the basics and remember that that's what we're doing. If you remember how you're getting to the answers, this is the strategic thinking that I'm really committed to. If you remember how you got to the answers, then you also are empowered to get to the answer the next time. Right? Just having a checklist of what to do is not really empowering you, because then how do you know how to do it the next time, or how you did it last time? You just sort of like blindly going at it. So I love that for you. And I love that the foundational anatomy really supported. For those of you who are just hearing about our mastery program, I had a confession to my mastery grads that the very first time I ran the program, I made the mistake as an educator in thinking that all of the colleagues that were joining me in that training track, who were very proficient and capable beyond measure to be there to learn this method, which is it's hardy for sure. But I made the grave mistake in assuming that they had the same anatomy base that I did, and it made the method unreachable for them. And I learned a lot from that, to not make that assumption, and also to fill in the gaps. Like, what anatomy do they need that I use so that they can learn the method and then apply the method? And it's the same for all of us, whether you're using my method or not. The same gaps in anatomy are what get us into not solving the problem we're there to solve. and the same base ideas of design are the ones that solve the problems, the musculoskeletal problems that we're all serving. So I really appreciate you guys allowing what feels like review to be new, because there's hopefully a new appreciation for like, where do I get to go? Do I need to go into like the next complex, you know, I don't know, deep dive into YouTube, or do I need to just go back and learn muscles and joint actions and prime movers? Like maybe I could get a lot from that. You can. And that was the purpose of our masterclass last week. One of the purposes. All right, my loves, are there any last questions that I can support you with before we wrap up for today? Anybody have anything that you'd like me to support you with or on? Any questions? Nothing? Okay, fantastic. Well, I really appreciated you all being here. For those of you who did join us in the Basics Build Foundation Anatomy program, we are hosting our, or not hosting, we are having our first study group tomorrow, Wednesday. So that's an extra bonus for those of you who jumped into that build program. You've got me right there by your side, helping you get through the anatomy from now through July. And I'm really looking forward to that. So for those of you who will be there, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Check your emails because you already got the link sent to you today. If you didn't get that link, please reach out to us and let us resend you the email, especially given whatever is going on with the internet today. So I look forward to seeing all of you in that study group tomorrow. And again, for the rest of you next Tuesday in Tuesday training. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you guys next week.